Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Lauren, aka BooksMcD. Today I'm going to be doing my March and April reading wrap up. I was going to do a first quarter thing, but it was like too many books and I'm a little long-winded, so I'm going to do 2 months of reading wrap up through the rest of the year, and I'm going to pick a favorite at the end of each wrap up, and then at the end of the year I'm going to pick like my favorite for the year. So I do have a trusty coffee here. Don't forget, I hate the dome lid. I always forget to ask for no whipped cream, but it does make it kind of delicious. Anywho, let's go through what I finished reading in March and April. I'll tell you what I rated it, and then we'll pick a fave. So the first book that I finished was an audiobook for a book club. It's called The Girl with All the Gifts. It's kind of Last of Us vibes. The Last of Us on HBO, if you haven't seen it, is about kind of like a mushroom fungus type thing that takes over our bodies when people get infected. I don't know, they're zombies, but they're not zombies, and I obviously don't have like the proper Latin terminology for the mushroom fungus zombie thing, but it takes over and then there's like zombies. It's post-apocalyptic. This is the same thing. Also, The Last of Us is really good. You should totally check it out. But this is the same thing. It's that same concept. In this book, though, so I listened to it, audiobook, very good, check it out. But in this story, there are these children who are infected, but they're like trying to teach them, and they've discovered this chemical that if you like rub it on people's bodies who aren't infected, it like blocks a particular pheromone or something, and the children don't react, whatever. But P.S. spoilers, sorry, in the middle of telling the plot of this story, but it's before I get to spoilers, just know that there will be spoilers, because I just can't review the books without spoilers. There's like a doctor there, and they're doing studies and stuff, and then there's like teachers there and such. Well, the doctor's just straight up giving the kids lobotomies and like taking their brains out and I don't know, whatever, to study them so that like we can figure out like, oh, how come they don't just get like full blown infected? How come they can like think a little bit and whatever? And there's these like moral questions, like who's more wrong? The teacher that like knows what their fate is and is lying to them and making them seem like, oh, you're gonna have a regular life, or the doctor who's like telling the truth and is just like taking their brains out, whatever. The thing I like about it, I don't mind when the stereotypical ending happens, like good guy wins, bad guy loses, good over evil, yada yada yada. But like it's always interesting when things don't go as you plan, or good doesn't always win, or what you think is good doesn't always win. And so in this case, it's like humanity is doomed. There's really no way out of the situation. And so it's more like an evolution type of thing than it is like, I don't know, because I wasn't sad at the end. I just thought it was interesting. But a lot of people don't like that, like when we lose, right? But I don't know, I kind of liked it. And I think it kind of made the book better. There is a second one called like The Boy on the Bridge or At the Bridge or something. I'm just not interested. I thought this was like really nice, neatly wrapped up. I like that we didn't win in a traditional sense or whatever. And so for me, The Girl with All the Gifts is good as a standalone. I listened to it in like a day. So I think it's really good if you like have another activity you do, like cleaning, or if you like are putting your clothes away even, or just doing whatever type of chores or crocheting or whatever you're doing. This is a really good one to just like listen to, because I think it's pretty easy to absorb. I gave this a 4 out of 5 and I definitely recommend it, but it is kind of Last of Us vibes, so it's like if you're having a little bit too much of that right now, since that was really popular, maybe wait a little bit. The Girl with All the Gifts, check it out. Okay, the next one I finished in March was really, really good. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Okay, I don't want to cry. You know how I like to cry. The thing about this book is I thought it was just a story about 2 friends who meet when they're young and they kind of get along over video games, Sam and Sadie. And you think, okay, this is really nicely written. I'm enjoying the story. You know, we're kind of getting through the book and I'm like, all right, I don't really know what this book is about. Like I'm 65, 70% of the way through the book and I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I don't know what all the buzz is about. Because, like, this was super popular. It won the Book of the Month, Book of the Year. I was confused. I was like, okay, it's not that it's not good, but I'm like, it was huge, this book. So I'm like, what am I missing? I'm 65, 70% of the way through. And I'm like, okay, it's a nice story about friendship, the ups and downs of friendship, and, you know, when we don't communicate and how that affects friendship. I don't know what I was thinking. And then something tragic happens. And you realize the book isn't about really what you thought at all. God darn it. I can't believe I'm gonna cry. So Sam and Sadie, in their adventures together, they start making a video game together as adults because they have a falling out. They run back into each other. They start working on a video game together as adults. Sam's roommate, Marks, kind of helps them do what they need to do. Like, they're kind of the brains behind, the video game aesthetics and the coding and everything. But Marks knows how to be a producer, and he knows how to get it out there. And so he becomes like part of their team, but not in a way that you really view him as a main character. It's always about Sam and Sadie. And Marks is just also there. And then some people who are upset by a game they release come to the office and with guns, and they want to shoot everybody at the video game because they're upset with it. Sam and Sadie aren't even there. They're off doing like different promos or working or whatever. They're probably in the middle of another falling out. And Marks is just trying to protect everyone in the office. And so he, engages in a conversation with these people, and it does seem like it's going to go his way until it doesn't, and he gets shot. And then the entire book, and I half listened, half read this, the entire book switches gears. It's told from the second person. It's told with a different vocal narrator, with a different voice actor. And it's from Mark's perspective in a coma in the hospital and the thoughts he's having, like the monologue or the stream of consciousness thoughts he's having. And it's so good. And I was like driving home from an event. And it was like an hour drive, and I was weeping in the car, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Do I pull over? What do I do? So this was dangerous. This book is dangerous. But I think what I realized after the tragedy in the book, because Marks doesn't make it, and I think what I realized is, in the book there's this quote, there can be no game without the NPC. And when you play like role-playing games, there's non-playable characters who often give you quests, or you go on different adventures with maybe a non-playable character or whatever, but they exist in the game to help the main character kind of do the quests and fulfill their journey, and there can't be a game without them, because what would you do in the game, right? And it makes me think about all the people that come into our lives and go out of our lives, and what kind of impact they have on us, even if it's just you meet a person once, what kind of ripple they have on your life, or you on them. And I know that Marks was like more close with Sam and Sadie than that. He was, a friend, but the way the book is written is so good, because it's like always Sam and Sadie's story. It's never really about Marks. He's the NPC in their story, and he matters so much. And it just makes me think about coffee break. Coffee. Oh my God. And it makes me think about life, and it makes me think about those people who come into our lives, and maybe they're only there for a segment, but they mean a lot. Like teachers you have in school that maybe you wouldn't end up on the path that you're on, because you had them as a teacher and it changed your life, and that was big for you, and you might never see them again. I think that this book makes me think about things like that, and I think it's really beautiful. I can't recommend it highly enough. I don't even know if I've said enough, but I'm like weeping now, and I have to talk about all these other books I read. So we're going to call it with this one, but this is very good. I know that like some people might not be into all the video game content in the book. I think it's worth checking this one out, even if it's not necessarily your favorite subject matter. Gabrielle Zevin also wrote The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry, which I remember being amazing. I read it like over a decade ago, maybe 15 years ago. I remember it being amazing. I don't remember why, but I bet she did the same kind of thing. But I would definitely recommend Tomorrow. I gave this a 5 out of 5. I'd probably give it higher if I could, but yeah, 5 out of 5. And please check this out. If you want to cry, check it out. Okay, that was actually all the books I read in March. I read 2 books in March. I was kind of coming off of that February where I only read 1 book, but then I read 5 books in April, which for me is a lot. I usually can only do about a book a week, but I had a readathon at the end, which you may have seen if you've checked out my channel before. I did some Captain's Log-esque live updates that get more and more delirious as time goes on. Check them out if you're interested, because I don't know, I talk about the readathon, and the readathon's fun, and there's going to be another one in July. There's going to be another one in October, I'm sure. So join me on those readathon journeys. Okay, that was a weird middle of the video plug, but it's fine. So let's talk about the books I read in April. The first one, I had to read for work. It's called Primal Leadership, Unleashing the Power of Emotional Intelligence. And I should leave a picture of it here because even though I own the book, I didn't even want to go grab it from where it is because I'm lazy and I just don't care about it that much. These types of books are always good in that they have like one or two, maybe like 3 or 4 good nuggets of information or advice, but they like pack it in a book that's 200 or something pages, and it's not necessary. Like, it's just a bunch of case studies like, oh, in this business situation, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, why don't you just give me the bullet point of what the advice or the nugget is? And sure, maybe one story about how it applies so I can see like practical application or whatever. But these books, like, it's like they're stretching very little information to reach a certain page count so they get a whole book out of it. I'd rather just read a paper. But also, I don't know that a lot of this information is backed up with enough like scientific study or experimentation. Like, a lot of these books talk about case studies like, oh, well, we helped this business by doing XYZ. Great. Well, if you sampled 100 businesses and you applied this, 100 similar businesses and applied this same like method or whatever, would it actually work? Like, I want more data on it. And these are all about like individual case studies and, whatever. They're trying to fill a book. Just give me the 4 or 5 nuggets and call it a day. I don't need to read the whole thing. I got more out of the interaction in class with, other people at my place of work than I did from reading the actual book. I got more out of the conversations in class. So I don't know. I rated this 2 out of 5 because there was like some interesting nuggets in there, but like, is this worth it to read? No, I happened to read it and I'm telling you about it. Next book. The next book I read is Black Cake. I half read, half listened to this one, and I really enjoyed the narration of it, actually. So it doesn't actually say the location, but I think we're supposed to be in Jamaica. It's kind of vague Caribbean, and the voice actor does really good with accents and also really well with like changing the pitch and tone based on like our men speaking, our women speaking, whatever. So I really enjoyed listening to this, but I think Black Cake overall is trying to do a little bit too much in not enough pages. So what it's about is it's a mother who has passed, has left a will to her 2 children, and there's kind of a mystery involved, and it opens right away with like a potential death. And I'm reading the book and I'm thinking, I already know what's going to happen. I can see the scandal a mile away. What's going to happen is the mother's going to have faked her death so that she can get out of a shitty situation like a crappy marriage or whatever, but she's actually going to be alive and this is her and whatever. I'm like, that's it. That's going to be the whole book. We're going to hear this like journey on that whole situation. Like, yes, but that's just the first third of the book. And then I was like, oh, well, if that's the first third, like, where are we going? So to me, that could have been a whole book, and just the mother's journey from like, and it still is her journey. And to me, the journey of the mother is the focal point, but the book is trying to do a lot with like giving us more background on the daughter and the son and their grandfather, who is, the mother's father. Then there's like a third child who comes into play, which is fine. And then there's like the mother's friends and stuff. And we're filling in too many backstories of too many characters that I don't care about. And so that's the hard part. Like, the mother to me is the focal point. Although I love mother-daughter relationship stories, and so I don't know if I just like happen to focus on mothers a lot, but like to me, the mother's journey is the thing, and I really only care about hearing the mother's story. If her dad was shitty to her, the grandfather, I don't need to go back and revisit where he is at the end because I don't care. It's okay to not tie up every single loose end. You know what I mean? Like, I just talked about tomorrow. People come in and out of your life and you don't get to know how their story ends. It's okay for us to not know how some stories end if it's going to make the book longer or be disjointed or take away from the main story. That's the thing. And so I thought it was trying to do a little bit too much. I liked it. I still liked the journey of the mother, but there's just too many outside characters from that main journey that I don't care about. So I don't know. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I don't think it's not worth it to read. And it did go quite quickly. I enjoyed reading it and listening to it. It's just that what I thought was going to be like the mystery of the whole situation kind of happened early on. And then I was like, I don't know where we're going, and it's fine. I don't mind her journey, but I also don't really care about all these extra characters. What in my mind are extra characters? And so I think it was just trying to tie in too many storylines and trying to tie them up too nicely at the end. You don't always need to do that if it's going to take away from the main point of the book. So I would try Black Cake, but 3 out of 5. The next book I read was Interior Chinatown. So Interior Chinatown is really interesting. It's kind of about stereotypes of Asian actors in Hollywood, and it's weird to read this book on the tail end of Everything Everywhere All at Once, like sweeping awards shows this year. I don't think that means that like things are fixed now by any means, but I do think it's worth noting that Charles Yu started this book. I read an NPR article or something that, or maybe it was like LA Times, I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I read an article that said that he started this book in 2012. And I will say, like, 2012 versus 2023 is different and should be different. I'm not saying it's like a million times better, but it's better and it is different. I think had this been more of like a memoir or whatever, it might have been more interesting because it might be more about like Charles Yu's experience. And just to note, I have to double check like what the shows were and stuff in the flap. He received the National Book Foundation's 5 Under 35 award and was nominated for 2 Writers Guild of America awards for his work on the HBO series Westworld. He has also written for shows on FX, AMC, and HBO. So, like, Charles Yu has experience in Hollywood. So that's the thing. I'm like, if I'm going to listen to anybody's experience of Hollywood, like, obviously he knows what he's talking about. And he talks about these stereotypes of, like, the generic Asian man in acting situations can only play so many roles, right? And he goes through these, like, stereotypical Asian roles for actors in Hollywood. And it makes sense. Like, I was alive before 2023, and so I know what he's talking about. And like the main thing is kung fu guy. Asian actors can only ever play kung fu characters, and you get the sense that like he's poking fun at that whole situation and he's calling it out, and it's like, yeah, as you should. But I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that things continue in the way that they are and that actors are available for any type of role and not just the stereotypical ones of Hollywood. Another amazing thing about this book, which I thought was really interesting, is it's written in a screenplay format. So, oh, sorry, the sun, but it's written in a screenplay format. I think that makes it interesting because obviously we're commenting on Hollywood here, but also what's weird is there's like this vague grayness to where we are in the story sometimes. So the main character of the book is in a show. And a lot of times the scene is like in the show. So there's this gray area of like, are we in real life or are we in that show? And so I thought that was really interesting. There's kind of like this, where are we type of thing happening. But I will say, I do think a memoir by Charles Yu would be super interesting because the part that I enjoyed the most was actually a flashback about the main character's parents, which is written out. It's like a flashback monologue setting the scene type thing. And it's fully written out and it's really well written. And so I'm thinking that a more long form book, something that's like not in screenplay format by this writer, would be really, really interesting. This book won the National Book Awards, so it was really well received. And I definitely recommend it. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars just because I think it's really interesting. And I think what it's commenting on is an interesting thing as well. It goes pretty quickly too because it's screenplay format. So, and I did partially listen to this just because I was curious what it would sound like if you were listening. It's maybe a little bit more difficult because there's those parts in the background where it's like, okay, setting the scene, okay, title of thing, now people saying things. And so it's a little confusing, so it's probably better to read, but I don't know, I wouldn't not check out the audio. So, Interior Chinatown, 4 out of 5. The next 2 books I read, I finished during the readathon, and I talked about them like a teeny bit on the Captain's Log updates or whatever, but I didn't really do full reviews, and so I'm going to talk about them here. The first book I finished was Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This book is super interesting for Stephen King. It's not what I consider a typical Stephen King novel, but then again, I am not very, very familiar with Stephen King. He's just not my style. I like all fantasy or all reality. And Stephen King does this thing a lot where it's like reality, 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 and then suddenly somebody has telekinesis. And I think that's fine when it's not a plot device to move the story forward because like we painted ourselves in a corner and now we need to get out of here. And sometimes I do feel like they're like that a little bit. Like, oh, okay, here's a criminal who killed a bunch of people and now he's captured and in a hospital. Okay, we need him to get out. So suddenly the combination of drugs they're giving him gives him telekinesis. Like, come on, that to me is annoying. I want it to be all based in fantasy or all based in reality. This is kind of an example of how you can be in that like gray in between area, but it's not like a plot device. In this story, we're based in reality, okay, up to a certain point. There's an older gentleman who falls off a roof, a kid sees it or hears a dog howling, and he goes to take care of him, and he just feels obligated to help because he prayed to God and his father was an alcoholic. He kind of bargained with God and said, if you make my dad not be an alcoholic, I'll do whatever and I'll be good and whatever. So he kind of feels obligated to help this older gentleman. There's a secret here. There's like a tunnel in a shed in the older man's backyard, and it leads to this world underneath our world. And this is like the fantastical element. But what I like about it is it's like this duology of these two completely different worlds. It doesn't feel like reality plot device to get us out of a situation. It feels like reality, fantasy. So that's different. It's the fact that the focal point of the story is that there's a fantasy world under our world. So it's not the same thing. And I enjoyed it. And you still get the sense that it's Stephen King because there's still like moderately gross stuff. I don't really like gross stuff, but there's like bugs, and then like there's this thing called the gray or whatever it's called. It's like affecting people in the fantasy world so that they're like losing their mouths, like they don't look drawn wholly, and like they don't have ears, or like they're losing parts of themselves, right? And the whole reason the kid's going down there is to like make the dog be younger. I don't know, there's a lot going on. Okay, but I don't know that I always enjoyed the pace of this book. Like it's definitely a slow build, and I don't mind a slow build because I do like world building. So like getting into the part where we find out about the world underneath our world, I'm like, interesting. Don't even mind it. Don't even mind all the parts based in reality. It's well written. Then we find out about the fantasy world, and I'm like, oh, okay, now we're moving. It's like super, super fast. And then the kid gets captured and he's not with the dog anymore. And I'm like, this part's 50 to 100 pages too long. Like I don't need this much with the capturing because we slow down to like what feels like a friggin' halt. And I gotta tell you, if I care about the dog more than I care about the kid, maybe that says more about me than... Maybe that says more about me. That's a problem for me. But yeah, I shouldn't be caring more about the dog than the kid, right? I don't know. But so that captured part, I think we could have done with like a lot less of that. After that part, then it picks up again and I'm enjoying it. But like the problems with pacing with this book are that typically, oh my God, I'm like getting into a spiel here, but typically I enjoy a book that's like a standardized bell curve, right? Like, this type of thing, like, okay, we start out slow, we build up, climax or whatever, and then okay, and it might even be more like a really slow build, and then but it's like it's a hill, okay, it's a standardized bell curve. I don't know, I think this book was trying to do like 2 standardized bell curves, but it didn't work. Once you hit like a climax in a story, I feel like I need a resolution, but you just like getting captured, it's more like a drop off. Explaining this well, but just problems with pacing in this book for me. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Did I cry a little at the end? Yes. Was I delirious from a readathon? Who can say? But the dog to me was the main character, and that's not great. So I don't know. Check out. I'm not saying not to check it out. Maybe I'm being a little harsh, but it is very well. It's Stephen King. You're not going to not enjoy it. It's well written. It's super interesting. I love the dog. Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. I sound like I didn't, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. It was a really nice fairy tale. The last book that I read was Red, White, and Royal Blue. Red, White, and Royal Blue is exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's the son of the President of the United States falls in love with the son of the England, I don't know, Queen, King, whatever. And they have a romance, but I didn't know it was also enemies to lovers, which just makes it like that much more good. That much more good. Hey, I'm really good at reviews. Did you guys know that? It's that much more good. It's just super adorable. At first they really hate each other, then they have to be friends for publicity, and before you know it, they love each other. So this is everything you need it to be when you need a feel-good book. Get this new collector's edition because it has these awesome end pages illustrated by Vanessa Kelly. Totally, totally beautiful. Check it out. Totally worth it. 5 out of 5. It's the best feel-good story ever. So definitely, definitely worth it. That is everything I read in April and March. So March and April, whatever. Tune in next time when I do my reading wrap up for May and June. Okay, I was part of the way through editing when I realized I didn't pick a favorite. So I'm just going to go ahead and record this, splice it in. It's going to be fine. The 2 books that I rated 5 stars were Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin and Red, White, and Royal Blue. So I feel like these are the 2 contenders for my favorite book for this reading period. Last time I cheated, I picked 2 books, and I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. I guess you could say I'm picking one per month, but I'm going to pick one per reading period. Last time I cheated, I picked two. I'm just going to pick one. And this is a really hard decision because they're both wonderful, but I think that I have to pick... Did I just knock the whole computer? It's fine, whatever. You didn't see anything. I think I'm going to have to pick Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Red, White, and Royal Blue is still very good, and I want you to read it, but I think my favorite book for this reading period was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Tearjerker! Okay, so back to your regularly scheduled programming. You didn't see anything. Thanks for watching. I'm at BooksMcD at all the socials, so, follow me there. I have a blog, Coffee, Read, Sleep, Repeat, that I basically never write in, but why not check it out? Why not check it out? Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, whatever. Tell your friends, tell your family that you watch this really cool person on YouTube talk about books. Thanks again, and I will talk to you later.